Firstly, thank you so much to the previous panelists for their amazing insights. Of course, artificial intelligence, generative AI, all of these things are top of mind for us right now. So while we're talking about these things, it's also really important to address how we can use all of these upcoming technologies for good of society and for the better. So to talk about exactly that, we have Eric, who is the CIO and Chief Security Officer at Flock Safety, and Kailesh, who is the managing partner at EY, with this panel being moderated by Jerel, who's the CEO at DECODE. Let's give them a warm welcome.
All right. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us for this session today. We are very honored to have Kailesh and Eric here today. And fun fact, it's actually Kailesh's birthday today. So super thankful for you to spare your time with us and have fun here with us. So looking forward to this panel.
It's great to be young.
Another fun fact, he's 25.
All right, so first to get started, maybe Kailesh, why don't you just get us started with a little bit about yourself, your background. I know you are dealing with a lot of stuff on the side, so it's interesting for the audience to have a bit of color towards your life and also personal story around tech for good.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Really nice to be here. Thank you for having me, Jerel. And congratulations on everything DECODE is doing. I love what you guys are doing there. And lastly, I hope with everything going on around the world, your families are all safe and well, and it's just like too many things happening. With that, my journey began in Uganda. I was born there and then left as a refugee during the Idi Amin timeframe. We were nomads for 2 years, going through East Africa to India, and then eventually ended up in England. During that time, my parents had got separated, so it took my father 2 years to find us. He was in England, and then eventually we came there. I didn't speak English, really didn't study or anything. I was a 6, 7-year-old. Anyway, eventually learned the language, went to school there, and I got an engineering degree. And then I went and did a master's and focused on expert systems, as we called them in those days, programming in Lisp and Prolog and all of those languages, which Eric and I were laughing about. And then I became an accountant, did my CPA equivalent in the UK, chartered accountancy. And so I had this real nice blend of business and engineering and IT. And in 1995, I came over here to Silicon Valley. My firm, Ernst & Young, who I've been with 33 years. In fact, this is the only job I've ever done. I'm not sure I could pass an interview these days with the tests that go on there, but I came here in Silicon Valley. I've done a lot of wonderful things around technology, working with startups to global Fortune 100 type companies. So happy to share all my experiences around AI and tech and so on. I'm a student at heart. What do I do outside of work quickly? I actually am an angel investor. I have lots of hobbies around different types of industry sectors that I'm involved with, from consumer products to retail chains to technology. And then also I'm one of the proud owners of Luton Town Football Club. So if any of you are soccer fans in the Premier League in England, there's 8 of us that own the club. We've been with it for many, many years and happy to talk about soccer all day long. Lastly, one of my passions that I have is around sustainability, and I'm a third of the way through my sustainability master's degree. So I'm learning a lot about how the convergence of technology is going to really help us for good here. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, thanks for sharing your background. Eric, how about you? Share a little bit of yourself for the audience here in the room.
Hey Jerel, first of all, thanks for having me. Similar to Kailesh, I'm an immigrant. So I got here in 2004. I grew up in Malaysia, went to school in Australia, and made my way to Boston, where we won the World Series this time 20 years ago. So that's my way to the United States. I'm right now CIO at Flock Safety. We're a technology company that creates products to solve crime. Prior to that, I was the CIO at a company called Cooper Software. I was there for 7 years, and I guess I went from saving money to saving lives.
Awesome. So Kailesh, I know you didn't mention it in the introduction, but you were the chair of the California Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. What roles do you think government and regulation bodies have in fostering tech for good?
Thank you for mentioning that, Jerel. So I've been on the board of the California Chamber of Commerce for a number of years, and I had the privilege of being the chair last year. So we get to work with the governor of California and the legislature around business growth and policies and legislation that help or hinder that. What's really fascinating is, I'm sure you guys have been watching the news and the federal government's executive order that the government signed in August, and then our own California governor signed the 12-23 in September. And then the UK just last week had a safety in AI summit. So this is going on around the world in terms of trying to understand where is technology going and what role does government and policy play, particularly around ethics. Now, the challenge is innovation and entrepreneurship happens much, much faster, and people are developing businesses, solutions, services, products much quicker. Government is always catching up, and their responsibility around trust, safety, security is always lagging. And what tends to happen is the gap is growing. Right now we're innovating within weeks and months, not decades. Policies take quite a while to come to fruition. I think one of the biggest things, ahas for me, when I've been working with the chamber in Sacramento, is that many of our legislature really have not worked at a startup or in technology or where we're doing a lot of this innovation. And we're trying to, what we need to do as this group here is educate them more. We need to drive more awareness. I worry that we spend so much of our time in commercializing a lot of what we do in technology that we're not spending enough time with legislature educating them, making them be aware. So then what happens is policies come out and we all complain, and then we try and backtrack and fix things. So my advice to people, having been doing this for a few years, is you should build into your company's time to spend with legislature, being transparent, being open, and letting them know what you're developing, what does the technology do, and then I think we're going to come up with much better policies. We have a lot more work to do there.
Totally agree with that, and I think you definitely hit a nail, because I think, Eric, you are working really closely with governments solving crime, right? Like, how do you respond to that? And also, how do you even approach the government? I think for the people, for students in the room, not many of them have built companies that sell to government. It's not common, I would say. So, any advice on that?
Yeah, Jerel, I just want to add on to what Kailesh said. In my view, we made a mistake with social media, where like if you look at what's happened with TikTok, you look at what happened with Cambridge Analytica. I think we failed as a society to work together, scientists, the public sector and the private sector, to come up with less regulation, but kind of the guardrails to keep all of us safe, right? I mean, think about something as simple as the guidelines for content on TikTok. It amazes me. I've got a 9-year-old that he can watch pretty much anything on TikTok, yet on TV you've got the ESRB who defines what's PG-13 or MA. Why couldn't we have applied something as simple as that to social media? So think about it in that context. Think about what's happening with AI today. I think we can learn from the past, and there's an opportunity for all of us to work closer, faster together to maybe pass, maybe not regulation, but maybe some sort of safeguards, and do it at a local level, right? I think we always wait for the government at the federal level to pass laws, and you've seen, right? We're not great at that, right? Take GDPR, for example, right? That got passed in 2018 in Europe, and it's still 5 years later, we still don't have it. So I'm hopeful we do something different this time around.
Got it. I think you brought up a very interesting point as well, because I think especially in like ESG these days, there's a lot of governments focusing on that, and the scenario is such that everyone creates their own standards, everyone creates their own policies, and then there's a difficulty of having like the source of truth, right? So how do you respond to that? Like, we want people to just approach the government, but at the same time, we need to have that balance between like having everyone having their own standards in that sense.
So having spent the past 6 months with law enforcement, the FBI, the CIA, here's one thing I realized. We always think that they're this exclusive group who have access to everything. Guess what? They're actually human, right? They're people as well, no different from you and I, and they're looking for us to collaborate with them, right? Again, I just think about my conversation with Michigan PD last week. And again, at the end of the day, I think Sergeant Jonathan said it best. Our ultimate goal, right? We all have a common goal, which is to solve crime. It doesn't matter whether you're a private company, whether you're the FBI or you're one of the 18,000 agencies across the United States. We all have a common goal. So let's go do it together.
I was just going to add one quick comment to that I think that over the last maybe 20 years or so, we've suddenly grown to this us v them mentality. It's like, oh, that's the government, that's legislation, that's policy, and this is us. I really feel with where AI is, the technology, innovation that's happening, that we've got to break that barrier. We have to what you said, Eric, work together, because that's the only way this is going to work. The challenge we have is people are able to find uses of technology, and we'll talk about that of AI and all the things that are going on around the world, but much faster than the government is able to get their arms around it and say, okay, how do we have trust, safety, security, and those kinds of policies? And so we really need to team together, and I think that's the mentality. So a lot of young people here, make sure you go out and vote and talk to your assembly member who's around here.
No, I was going to agree with Kailesh, but I was also going to just get a show of hands. Who here has been, into police department recently? One. Okay. I'm not going to ask why. but here's the thing. So part of my role is visiting my customers, which is law enforcement. And if you walk into any police department today, you'll find that the computers they have or the technology they have, it's almost 20 years old. Right, so here you have a workforce who's trying to solve modern day crime with technology that's 20 years old. Right, you're talking about a monitor or a computer that is Windows 98. Right, that's scary. So think about it. They're looking for your help, our help, in terms of innovation, in terms of opportunities to make things more efficient. And again, Kailesh, I agree with you, right? I think it's ripe for disruption in terms of not just law enforcement, but I think the federal space as well.
Awesome, thanks for the sharing. I'd like to change the mood a bit. I know, Kailesh, you have one famous quote and your favorite quote, which is, people don't care what you know until they know you care. Could you share more about that? A little more context. It's not the first time I'm hearing it. In fact, I was visiting a friend yesterday and he mentioned that same quote as well. So yeah, share more about it.
Thank you, Jerel. I have no idea who said that quote, but I've been using it for years and years. At the heart of what's going on in the world today, where information overload, the speed at which we run our lives, the pace at which things are going, it is hard to grab anybody's mind share. Whether you're in a one-on-one conversation or whether you're in a group, it doesn't matter what the content or topic is. And so I use this quote personally every single day, every interaction, because to me, when you have care, it means you have understanding and empathy. And when you have understanding and empathy, you can actually have a conversation. You can have a dialogue. You can have a little bit of a banter with each other. When you have that, there's a little bit of trust and intimacy that leads to middle ground negotiations, right? That can come to some happy conclusion. I just think that when we're all speeding around and running around, and many of us do this, we just text somebody versus calling them, or we're multitasking, or we kind of, instead of really listening to somebody, we just speed through it and keep moving. I just think that we've got to learn to slow down. And that quote, I keep with me all the time. Whenever I feel overwhelmed or it's like, oh, I'm going too fast, it's like, slow down, pay attention to what's right in front of me right now. At the end of the day, just simplifying things, AI, what is AI and all this technology we're creating? It's just simulation, right, of human thinking and action. And so if this is our behavior in the way we treat each other and the way we work, our technology shouldn't be expected to be too much different from who we are, right, as a shadow of our thinking and actions. And so I'm just a big believer that I think we have to pay attention to ourselves, and then I think the technology piece is a good dialogue that we can have around it.
Awesome. Thanks for the sharing. Eric, any particular quote that gives you certain insights or anything that really struck you?
It's going to be hard to follow. Well, I guess in the context of this audience, right, a lot of entrepreneurs are here. Aim small, miss small, right? It was a quote by Mel Gibson in the movie Patriot. It was the American Revolution in the year 1776, and he was coaching his kids to aim small and take out the British, right? And the reason I shared that is I think about what I did at Coupa, the 8 years I spent there, and how we took the company public, eventually sold it. I mean, it's great to dream big, but if you can't execute and with a level of precision, you're not going to be successful. So again, aim small, miss small is kind of the philosophy that has helped me through my career.
Awesome. So we hear about the term double bottom line very commonly these days, especially with the whole ESG growing and stuff like that. How do both of your organizations think about double bottom line? And I guess especially for the founders in the room, especially when we are very, very early stage, how would you suggest them to think about allocating their resources, right? Because the bigger your company is, the more resources you have to allocate into these double bottom line kind of initiatives. So love to bring up to the floor either of you any comments, any thoughts. Feel free to share.
I'll kick off with a few thoughts here. When in today's world, the amount of capital, whether it's resources, money, whatever, that you need to really get going is not that much. With open source and AI and cloud and the technologies on your fingertips, I mean, you all know that your phone that you're holding is more powerful than when we sent the men to the moon in 1969 or whenever it was. But so it's readily available, right? What that means is we're innovating faster. And what that means is we're impacting society faster. And so the changes in society that we're seeing, I feel, are happening weeks and months and what have you, versus what it used to take decades. So what does that mean? It means that as businesses and organizations, we can't sit on the sidelines. We are moving too fast that you have to get involved. Double line, by the way, is financial responsibility as well as social responsibility, right? And I feel that every organization now has to play a part in that. I mentioned I'm doing my master's in sustainability, and when you look at the sustainability development goals, all 17 of them, they absolutely lean on the fact that public-private partnerships, innovators, entrepreneurs are going to be at the center of helping us solve a lot of these things. So I just think that our employees are demanding it. Your workforce, I'm sure, is asking for us to have a point of view and to get in, and to engage. And so this is one of those where you have to study and you have to make a stance and you have to be engaged as an organization versus being on the sidelines.
When I think about double bottom line, I think it's a concept that's not new, right? I think it was first coined in the mid 90s, right? And it's taken us 25 years to get it right. Here's what I would say. I think that's there's a huge opportunity for everyone here in the room to do something meaningful, purposeful, and make profit along the way, right? If I think about Flock's story, Garrett, my CEO, he started with very simple problem statement. He lives in Atlanta, and he was just simply trying to solve crime. Crime was going up in his neighborhood in Atlanta, and to what Kailesh said, he said, "Hey, how can I help law enforcement solve crime?" He sat down with the local PD, and he said, "Hey, how can I help?" And they said, "Do you know that 70% of all crime that happens in the United States happens with a vehicle, and we have trouble tracking down a vehicle. He says, fine. Why is that? Well, you have cameras and all that, right? Surveillance cameras. Why is it so hard to track down vehicles? And they say, well, half of them, first of all, half of them don't work because it needs to be maintained and it's old. The second problem statement that he had was, each one of those cameras costs $25,000. It's not cheap. So Garrett, being a Georgia Tech alum, said, okay, let me go figure out how to solve that problem. He took his iPhone, and today we provide, cameras, license plate readers for $2,500. So if you think about it, right? Find a problem that's that you're passionate about, interested in solving. Go do it. And again, if Flock is a testament on the double bottom line, there's a social good, but we're also growing really, really well. We're cash flow positive, and we're making a difference.
Well, one example I'd love to share, Jerel, is at my organization, we have this program called EY Ripples. It's been going for a number of years, and our goal was to impact 1 billion lives in some way, shape, or form for good. And in fact, our people get to volunteer for 12 weeks at a time to go there and support them to solve a community problem. In fact, I'm starting my project this year, sometime in December, going to the slums of Mumbai in India, because we want to use technology to see how do we get the kids there and the community there much more access to a lot of this technology to better their lives. So I think to your point, Eric, I don't think we have to solve world hunger, although I think we can. I just think that you need to find something that of passion, and there are lots of opportunities to be able to go and make a difference, especially with all the technology we have available today.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it starts from somewhere, right? It starts small pieces, and then everyone contributes, and then it will just grow and expedite the movement in that sense. Curious to know, we want to save some time for audience questions. I know a number of you would have burning questions to ask our guests here. But last question I have, what predictions do you have in the next decade for this area of tech for good?
Let me kick it off by saying that the world's really sad right now. Okay, let me just kick off with that, right? If you look at the problems we have around us, like in the past 5 years, we had the global pandemic. You have Russia's invasion of Ukraine. You have probably one of the hottest summers, and then more recently, the deadly war in the Middle East. My prediction is, despite all of the doom and gloom, that the next generation will do it better than me and Kailesh, right? Like people in this room. And I think that technology, whether it's AI, whether it's AR, VR, whatever it is, will play a big part in it, right? So if I fast forward 10 years from now, I see a world where a lot of people in this room would help, solve, all those problems that we see today, and technology will be a huge part of it, right? And doing it together.
I'll leave you with 3 things from me, I think, that may be helpful, a little optimistic. One, if you were to fast forward in the next decade and say, are we going to be living the Terminator environment or the Star Trek environment? I'm very much in the Star Trek environment. I think the technology is there for good, and I think we will use good, and good will prevail. I truly believe in that. There are a number of kinks we have to iron out today. So a lot of this simulated human thinking and action is based on data. And a lot of our historical data has bias in there, whether you're hiring or using it for certain things, and does it really cover underserved communities and so on. So we'll fix that. But once that's done, I really do believe that there's a lot of goodness that will come from there. The second is, I'm actually excited, and I'm planning to be living in space in my lifetime. I don't know about you young people, but I just think that we have so much more that's going to happen, and I'm jealous that what you're going to see in the next 10 years will outweigh what I've seen in my 60 years or so. And the third is, I tell dad jokes to my kids every day as a way to connect with them. So I'm going to leave you my technology dad joke to kind of give you my optimism. I don't know if you heard today, but the Oreo introduced their first artificially intelligent Oreo. I hear it's going to be one smart cookie.
You know, Kailesh, I was actually thinking about asking you to end off with that joke because I saw a lot of your interviews online and you always end off with that. So you kind of read my mind. And also, on top of that, you mentioned about space travel. And I think for those people that know me really well, I traveled a lot when I was like in college. And one of my goals is actually to travel to the moon. So that totally resonated with me. Awesome. Will?
Jojo, I will just say one quick comment since we're talking about AI for good and technology for good. I'm a big believer that all of these things that we call technology are just tools. They really are. It's humans that are at the center of all of this. And I feel like we should talk about humans for good or mankind for good. Because if we get our mentality right, I think it's going to work just fine, the technology. Our kind of challenges I think we're going to face as a human race, and we haven't spent enough time thinking about this, is things like wellness, mental stress challenges. We're so addicted. Like I'm watching a number of you guys with your computers and phones and all those things while we're chatting, and I just think that, okay, how do we find ways to keep our social skills, our human kindness, that doesn't go away with the digital screen? I think that's my biggest worry that I think in the next few years we've got to look at.
Awesome. We'll have some time for questions. Anyone from the audience? Oh, wow, that's a lot.
I think we're done. We're out of time.
No, we do have some time. Do we have mics for the audience? Here. Here.
Thank you. My name is Linda. I'm a graduate student at Berkeley, and thank you for your talk. And also, your background is inspirational. My parents are also refugees from Cambodia, so just hearing where you guys came from is inspirational. So my question is, you guys mentioned the importance of interagency collaborations with government, and especially with AI and the opportunities of AI, and working with them. But some of the issues that I found is, especially dealing with infrastructure, specifically in transportation, working with agencies like the police department and the EMS. How do we get our, essentially them to work with us in acquiring the data? Because some of the concerns that they have is, well, there's security issues. We don't want to be able to give that data out because it's sensitive information. However, we need that data to be able to do generative AI that can help serve the public. So how do we get past that hurdle?
Yeah, I'll take that. Well, nice to meet you, Linda. Here's what I would say. Trust and transparency, right, is what I've found really works. Where you can be really open with what you're doing and the problem you're trying to solve. In general, at least with my interactions with law enforcement and also the three-letter agencies, they're willing to work with you. I mean, you think about it. I mean, and I've seen a lot of their, capabilities. They're really, really old. And imagine this, going up to, and I'm making this up, right, but the CIA and saying, hey, you know what? I can bring your productivity down, up by 30%, just managing cases, right? Inbound cases for you. I mean, that would be huge, right? For an agency of 35,000 people, that would be huge. So just imagine if you frame the problem statement, well enough, and you're fully transparent with what you're doing and how you're doing it, I think you'll be surprised that they'll be really open to it. I've seen a lot of startups. So I was at IACP, which is the International Chief of Police conference in San Diego just a month ago. And I mean, I just saw a lot of startups and innovation, and I was blown away, right? So I would say don't give up. If that's the aspiration, that's the goal, go for it.
Thank you. I like that answer. Is your mic? Thank you.
So, hi, my name is Armand. I'm currently a student here at UC Berkeley. We're here talking about tech for good, and there's a lot of ways that increased access to technology is beneficial to people. But at both like a micro and macro level, how could an increased access to technology inhibit our growth?
Inhibit our growth. I don't know that it will inhibit, but let me give you a couple of examples. I think, Jerel, you had asked me at the beginning, one of my favorite technology examples. There's an organization that's working in Africa, and basically what they decided to do was, what is the most low maintenance, low impact way to teach kids in villages that have no electricity, no capability of transportation or anything. And they created this tablet, using open source, AI, all of that. And literally what they did was they drove to the villages, they left the tablets there on the floor by the village where they are, and they set up a solar panel that would charge it overnight. And that's all they did. They didn't even tell them like how to turn it on or anything. Within 3 years, they've got 300,000 children that are at the proficient level of math and some of the studying in villages that are so remote. And so when I look at examples like that, I think technology is there for good. It is being used for good. Now, use that same example of learning and education, and you look at how people become polarized, radicalized, how they become biased because of misinformation. And I think, was it yesterday, there was a school that had all sorts of pictures posted on there that were not real, and the students, and it creates all sorts of challenges. So I just think that no matter what industry, you could go down the list, healthcare, transportation, automation, robotics. For every good, yes, there's a chance that it will be used for something not so good and will hinder our human societal growth. But I just think that we need to accelerate all the good stuff. We need to have it on the front page. But one of my challenges is every day I wake up and I try and read a little bit of the global news. And and for years now, I've been doing this, and I would say 90% of it is all about the bad stuff. I have to work very hard to find the good stuff in there. Like, oh, this person helped somebody else, this person did. I just think we have to change as a society in that way to elevate the good stuff that is happening, and I think it will be just fine. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that was great commentary. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Felix from Cancun. Yeah, I have a question about if it's possible, do you think we will have access to any tool to detect or identify AI scams in the future?
Sorry,
AI scams. Scams. Yeah.
AI is a scam. Okay, absolutely, yeah. So sorry, your question is if whether AI would be used for scams in the future?
If it's possible, identify that scams.
Yeah, no, I mean, let me just maybe zoom out of that a little bit, right? And think about it in the context of, say, cybersecurity, right? And the use of AI today, just something as basic as phishing attacks, right? So we're seeing a lot of that happen, and I think we're going to continue to see that happen. But I want to go back to, Kailesh's point, where I think despite that, there's still going to be more good for AI than negative, right? So you think about it, well, the bad guys have access to AI to, compromise the system. The good guys also have capabilities, and if you think about it, well, like at least at Flock or even at Ernst & Young, who knows your system better than you, right? And if you've got that capability, that AI, to help prevent or protect the castle walls, I think my guess is we'll stand a better chance than the bad guys.
I'll give you a quick example. A few weeks ago, I had the chance to spend 3-4 days with some futurist professors talking about where the future of the world is going. And in there, they gave us an exercise. They split us up into groups and gave us 30 minutes. So just 30 minutes. And they said, you have to come up with a product, you have to come up with a pitch deck, a video, photographs, and funding document that you're going to take to build this company out. 25 minutes. In 25 minutes, we created all of that using technology that's available today at your fingertips. And it was amazing. It's original content. It's not even, copy and paste.
Yeah.
So all of that is readily available. I just think the one thing we have to do to your question of scams and fraud and safety and security is, I think we as human beings mustn't lose the skill of curiosity, questioning. If you see something, I hope you're not like my mum. I love her to death, mum. You're great, but she'll forward everything she gets on her phone. And I'm thinking, why are you forwarding things? You don't know where this is coming from. So my point is, question, be curious, ask questions, go deeper, understand, and validate things before you take something that you see, no matter where it is. And then I think we're going to be able to reduce the risk of a lot of that stuff. But we need to take responsibility in these scams and these challenges and not just say, oh, somebody should take care of it for us. It's not something we can outsource.
I think we have only time for one last question.
Hello, my name is Daria. My question is, whose responsibility do you think it is to make sure that this technology is developed and applied in a way that protects everyone involved?
Great question. I think it's all of us, right?
More specifically.
I mean, so I'll give you an example, right? If you think about President Biden's executive order, right, around AI, trustworthy AI and AI safety that came out last week, I think there's this broad mandate. If you look at what is happening in the EU around AI safety, they're trying to pass a bill in terms of what that should look like. I don't think that's going to work without all of us here in the room. I think it's going to be a collaboration between scientists, right? I think it's going to be a collaboration between the private sector. And I go back to this, right? I mean, the government is, I mean, honestly, despite good intentions, easily 3, 4, maybe even 5 years behind us, and they need our help, right? I'm pretty sure President Biden's using ChatGPT, but I don't think he gets, AI to its full context, right? So I think it's in all of us, and I think that the more we work together and, we help the government and leverage, whatever capabilities they have, I think the better we'll be.
Think back to the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and all of those monumental changes that changed our human society, and ask that same question: who's responsible to make sure this is for good? And it takes a while. I feel like we're living in the era of just growing pains. I think we're a few years away from being able to really understand that question better. But I totally agree with Eric that this is you, me, all of us, because there is no central organization or body that's going to say, okay, I'm going to keep you safe and well and what have you. So we have a role to play in that.
Yeah, and just one more thought, before we wrap up, Jerel. I think, again, like, the way I think about it is we have this beautiful opportunity, right, to go solve anything and take your pick, whatever you're passionate about, whether it's, poverty, if you think about social justice. Well, why can't we use something like Mid-Journey to go solve something like that, right? I'm sure everyone here has played with Mid-Journey, but have we thought about how you can use that capability, right, to solve something meaningful in this world? So I think, again, I go back to, I think this is a gift that's been given to us very recently. I hope we use it for good.
Awesome. It's such a pity that we have ran out of time. I'm sure the members of the audience would catch you around somewhere, maybe at the round tables. But yeah, thank you so much, Eric and Kailesh, for your time, and especially Kailesh for being here on your birthday. And let's give a round of applause for our honored guest.